Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is our monthly SGMP webinar, and we will go ahead and get started as people gather into the room. And I'll start with my typical housekeeping notes, and then we will go ahead and get this presentation going. Um, Again, thank you for being here today. We're going to hear a webinar called From Frustration to Flourishing, Mastering Generative AI Adoption for Meeting Planners with Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I think I'm saying that right. I'm Alan Kleinfeld. I'm the Education Director at SGMP. I'd like to thank you for showing up. And I'd also like to go ahead and give a shout out to our Gilmer Institute of Learning trustees for putting together this webinar. Before we get started, a few housekeeping notes. You may go ahead and text in the chat window questions for the speaker, or if you want to just say welcome, hey, it's Alan from Chicago, or wherever you're from. Go ahead and do that in the chat box, and we'll monitor that in case you have any questions. I'm sure you will, since this is an AI seminar, there might be some questions, so go ahead and put them there. You need to be in this webinar for at least 45 minutes to get credit for it. Once the webinar is done, your credits will automatically appear in your transcript within the learning portal within a few days. So don't go looking for it right away. Give us a few days to put it up there, and then you can reach out if you don't see it in there. Any questions regarding the credits or the webinar or anything else education related at SGMP, you can email me. It's really simple. education@sgmp.org. Please note that today's webinar is being recorded and will appear in the learning portal at learn.sgmp.org. So if you can't get here for the full 45 minutes, or your colleagues aren't able to make it, or you just want to review some of the things that were talked about, it will be available in our library. All right. And with that, we will get started. Let me introduce you to our speaker, who you may have seen before with us. Dr. Gleb Tsipursky, called the Office Whisperer by the New York Times, helps middle market leaders transform AI hype into real world results. He serves as the CEO of the Future of Work consultancy, Disaster Avoidance Experts. Dr. Gleb wrote 7 best-selling books, and his 2 most recent ones are Returning to the Office and Leading Hybrid and Remote Teams, and Chat GPT for Leaders and Content Creators, Unlocking the Potential of Generative AI. His cutting-edge thought leadership was featured in over 650 articles and 550 interviews in Harvard Business Review, Inc. magazine, USA Today, CBS News, Fox News, Time, Business Insider, Fortune magazine, the New York Times, and elsewhere. His expertise comes from over 20 years of consulting, coaching, and speaking and training for Fortune 500 companies, from Aflac to Xerox. That's pretty good, A to X. And from over 15 years in academia as a behavioral scientist, with 8 years as a lecturer at UNC Chapel Hill and 7 years as a professor at Ohio State. A proud Ukrainian American, Dr. Gleb lives in Columbus, Ohio. Please welcome Dr. Gleb.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Alan. Really appreciate it. Excellent. All right. So let's talk about how to master generative AI for meeting planners. That's what we want to focus on. So you should all be able to see my slides at this point. From frustration to flourishing, mastering generative AI adoption for government meeting planners. Now, if you want to get the post-training resources, especially if you're watching this as a recording, go to, and this is going to be, so Alan mentioned a copy of my book, Chat GPT for Leaders and Content Creators. I'm not trying to sell it. I'm happy to provide you with a copy of the book if you indicate that you want one. So if you go to the link you can see in the slides, HTTPS, then it's the relevant part of the link. You can skip that. You can just put in your URL, your browser, tinyurl.com/DAE-EVENT. So tinyurl.com/DAE-event. And I'll send you the post-training resources, including a copy of my book, information about the AI agents that I'll be talking about throughout this presentation, copy of the slides, other good stuff. So again, that's going to be at tinyurl.com/DAEEVENT. All right. So that out of the way, let's talk about the context of what's going on and what folks in government meeting planning are facing. So lots of disruptions. I'm not going to go into the politics of what's going on, which is certainly disrupted. But even not considering that, you're still operating under pretty serious public scrutiny and rigid constraints. Shrinking budgets, rigid procurement, increasing mission mandates. There is more and more burnout among government meeting planners, more and more challenges. So the challenge, of course, is do more with less. You've heard that time and time again. So you need to balance stewardship with lean impact. You're being asked to innovate for high impact, but with a budget that's getting increasingly cut. So low cost austerity, while still having a lot of compliance requirements, so high complexity. How do you solve these problems? Just doing more with less with human effort is really not going to help you much. You want to use AI tools to actually replace some of the automatic work that you're doing, some of the replace some of the boring work that you're doing, some of the stuff that you don't need to be doing with tools that provide intelligence and automation. It's a force multiplier that can act as a virtual program analyst. It's great for drafting, for checking. It can handle busy work. It's not going to replace the more high-level work for you. That's not what it's there for, but can handle the initial drafts of so many documents that you need to deal with. So let's talk about an example of one thing it can do. And what I did for the purpose of this talk was, so I worked pretty frequently with government meeting planners to help them figure out how to adopt AI effectively. So that's kind of the context from which I'm coming. And one thing that we start always we do is we create an AI agent that helps them fulfill a number of functions at once. So one that emulates and does a number of activities. And I'll show you an example of such an AI agent. And so it's built using Google platform. And I know if you're in government work, you're either likely using Google or Microsoft as your major tool sets. So this would be built within the Google framework, and this would be therefore just as secure as any other Google tool that you would use. So it's highly secure. You don't need to worry about anything like your data being trained on or so on if you're using the enterprise version. So we're talking about the enterprise version. That's what this tool is like. So let's say you have a new executive order or your agency goals. You are asked to act as a communications director for a federal agency, propose 5 themes for a 500-person interagency cybersecurity summit. For each, include a tagline aligned with current executive orders and digital safety, a stage design concept using sustainable materials that are GSA compliant, and a keynote speaker archetype. So this is the prompt that you would put into this agent. And so you could see a screenshot of this agent that I took, and I'll send you a link to the agent. Again, that's going to be at tinyurl.com/DAEEVENT. If you want the agent, actually grab that for you. I'll put it into the chat for your use, for your ease. Okay, good. Okay. So let's see what the agent answers. So you have that prompt, and you see the subject. Here's the 5 themes. Subject, strategic theme options for Interagency Cybersecurity Summit. So bluff, the bottom line up front, per your request for strategic ideation, here are the following themes for the upcoming summit, which align with current executive orders regarding digital safety and adhere to federal sustainability mandates, EO 14057 regarding venue design. So it gives you a theme, the zero trust imperative, gives you a tagline, strategic alignment, stage design, what it's suggesting, the keynote archetype for who you want to select as a keynote. That's one theme. Then gives you a second theme, workforce of the future, defending the domain, cultivating the next generation of federal cyber talent. That's kind of another theme. Strategic alignments, stage design, keynote archetype. So giving you all of that information. All that's good stuff. Theme 3, secure AI integration, governing the algorithm, safe AI adoption for agency mission success. Aligns with executive order, safe, secure, and trustworthy development and use of artificial intelligence. IO 14110 gives you stage design, modular industrial, then gives you a keynote archetype, industry visionary. So you want a private sector leader for this one. Then theme 4, interagency interoperability. Interoperability. One team, one fight, harmonizing defense across the federal agencies, focusing on breaking down silos to share threat intelligence. The paperless podium is the design. Then a keynote archetype would be a policymaker, so a cabinet level secretary or White House official. And finally, theme 3 is critical infrastructure defense, securing the grid, operational technology in a connected world, strategic alignment, the National Security Memorandum 22, focus on protecting physical systems, the stage design with upcycled innovation. Keynote archetype would be an operational leader, director of sector risk management, sharing real world case studies. Then it's going to give you some stewardship and compliance notes with justification for that and cost control. So, as you can see from this, imagine how much time it would take you to write this up if you had to do it from scratch. Whereas here, you can ask it for 5 themes, you can ask it for 15 themes, you can ask it for 150 themes, and it will come up with a whole variety of themes. And you can drill down into each theme and into each of these elements. So if you want to think about, oh, let's say, for theme 4, you decide on theme 4, interagency interoperability, tagline. Maybe give me 10 variations of this tagline, or strategic alignment. Give me much more in depth for each of these taglines. Give me a page-long strategic alignment. And for each of them, give me the stage design that would be appropriate for it. And then give me a keynote archetype for each of these 10 different taglines, or however many taglines you want. And then once you choose a tagline, you can also go in depth into strategic alignment, stage design, keynote archetype, and so on. And you can just go in depth from there once you select one. But the AI is great at generating very quickly these ideas and outlining them in a way that's going to be sufficient for many decision makers to just choose one, and then you can go in depth and work on revising that one to fit the decision maker's desires. So the result is you get instant alignment moving from a blank page to approval-ready concepts, with themes directly referencing mission goals, with justification language ready for approval memos, and sustainable options aligning with green government initiatives. So that's going to be quite useful for you. So that's one example of what this agent can do. Let's pursue some others. Let's talk about procurement. The enemy, procurement cycles. Big problem for government meeting planning. So you have to draft a statement of work, navigate approval, and of course, risk of protests if you have vague requirements. Let's talk about what you can do. You can draft the perfect statement of work. Draft a statement of work section for an AV contractor. So just that subsection. Specific needs, hybrid streaming for remote field offices, Section 508 compliant live captioning, secure hardline internet for government laptops. Tone would be technical and precise. And by the way, if you have any questions at any stage, feel free to pop them into the chat. So let's draft a statement of work. Okay, so taking a look at this, it gives you a specification statement of work project, title, AV support for hybrid agency summit. Gives the background and objective, whatever we decided previously in cybersecurity. Agent's name requires professional AV support. Contractor shall provide all necessary labor and equipment. Gives the scope of work with specific tasks. So he secure hybrid streaming services. then detailing what the secure hybrid streaming services would include, then secure hardline internet capacity, what that means, including constraints and security requirements. Then Section 508 compliance and accessibility, so providing real-time communication assisted real-time translation for the duration of the event with a performance standard. Must achieve a minimum accuracy rate of 98% to meet Section 508 legal requirements. Not acceptable would be AI-generated auto captions. So, ironically, the AI doesn't like the AI, but that's the legal requirement. So, there you go. Deliverability and acceptance. Pre-event test with a full dry run of the streaming link and hardline connectivity for 24 hours and post-event files, delivery of raw recording files, and corrected caption transcripts within 3 days. Scope control. By defining hardline drops and card services, we reduce the risk of scope creep and subsequent contract modification that inflate costs. Great. And then this is giving an example of market research per FAR Part 10. Ensure you circulate this statement of work to at least 3 vendors, including small business set-asides, to establish a fair and reasonable price. And Alan asked, you're using Gemini. Was that done for a specific reason? Can we use ChatGPT, Copilot, etc.? Absolutely. So I just did this using Gemini because I know a number of government meeting planners use Google as their provided tool. And so if you're using Google as your major tool set, then you just want to use Gemini because it just integrates well into Google. If you're using Microsoft as your major tool set, then you can use Copilot and it integrates well with Copilot. You can use ChatGPT, you can use Claude, Anthropic. So those from Anthropic, you can use any of those big four. So those big four are going to be highly valuable and all qualified to handle this type of creation, so this type of AI tool. Okay. And again, just like Alan did, pop any questions you have into the chat. All right. The result is that you have perhaps not completely error-free, but less errors in contracting because you have technical requirements that are clearly defined with accessible standards baked in from the start and with scope limitations to prevent cost overruns. Of course, in all of this, you'll want to check the AI output. It's not going to be 100% perfect, but it's often going to be better than what even someone who is a lower level staffer can produce. And so that is definitely something that you'll want to do. Like statement of work is an easy tool, easy activity to delegate to an AI. All right, let's talk about logistics and compliance. Navigating compliance is challenging. Let's be honest. Managing timelines that require multiple sign-offs with legal review, public affairs review, security clearance for speakers, lots and lots of stuff that you have to work on. So let's talk about how you can navigate it with creating a schedule that accounts for typical bureaucratic delays, which unfortunately are common in the government work and in meeting planning alike. So let's create a week by week work back schedule for a training conference 3 months from now. Include mandatory milestones for legal review, for purchase card approvals and security clearance deadlines with 2 weeks for legal review, 3 weeks for legal review and 2 weeks for purchase card approvals. All right, so that's the prompt. And what's happening with the agent? So the agent is telling us, hey, here is the critical work back schedule. The bottom line up front shows that to mitigate compliance headaches, this schedule identifies strict dependencies for legal, security, and procurement, working backward from event date to ensure all go, no-go dates are met. Phase 1, weeks 1 through 4. Focus is locking the roster and initiating long lead security clearance checks. That's clearance checks. So week 1 gives a week with concept and speaker outreach, with finalizing draft agenda, sending invitations to industry partners and academics. Week 2, data collection, collecting personally identifiable information from confirmed speakers ensuring data is transmitted securely. Then next, week 3, begin compiling approved to attend justification memos and ethics review documents, drafting statement of work for any logistics AV needs. Next is the critical milestone of security submission, with submitting security clearance for all non-government staffers. Because securities reviews are a common bottleneck, and we need 6 to 8 week buffer before the event. So the AI knows this, that this is a common bottleneck and that the kind of buffer that you typically need for this type of activity. And then phase 2, compliance and legal. So you have administrative prep in week 5, reviewing SOWs of SOWs for Section 508 compliance, preparing purchase card, request, and supplies. Then you have the deadline, another critical milestone of submitting the full event package to Office of General Counsel for review and preparing, allowing 3 weeks per requirements with all the items that should be submitted. Then you address any initial kickbacks or questions from OGC to prevent stalls, proactively identify potential conflicts of interest with industry speakers. Then you get the next milestone is at week 8, the legal green light, with receiving legal approval, go, no go decision. So the event date must be slide or agenda must be descoped if you don't have legal approval. Next phase, procurement and execution, weeks 9 through 13. Then there's where you do the spending of your initial funds and logistics. That's the P card requests, and it knows that all requests are below the micro purchase threshold to avoid complex contracting, if at all possible, and that's going to be helpful. Then you receive P card approvals, execute purchases for everything that you need to do, confirm security clearance for all speakers, replace denied speakers if needed, verify the digital materials are Section 508 compliant, confirm the ADA accessibility for the venue, and then distribute before you before you go emails, conduct AV dry run, and then event execution. And then finally execute the event and collect post feedback forms. So here you see a schedule created. Like how much time would it take you to create the schedule? You certainly have some pre-drafted schedules, but this is quite comprehensive and solid. And of course, you can tweak the schedule however much you decide. You can work with the agent to put in your comments about the schedule, to put in questions, and work with the agent to tweak the schedule further. The result is that you get proactive plan. You don't miss deadlines with buffer time automatically calculated, which is really helpful, with dependencies clearly identified and alerts set for critical go, no-go dates. All right, let's talk next about accessibility, Section 508. It's not optional, it's the law. So you need to ensure that digital materials are readable, that physical venues are accessible, and accommodate diverse dietary needs per diem rules or per diem rules, which I appreciate myself, not as someone who doesn't eat meat. So, ensuring no attendee is left behind. Create a comprehensive Section 508 compliance checklist for a hybrid town hall. Break it down into pre-event registration accessibility, live presentation requirements, captions, ASL, and post-event recording distribution standards. That's the prompt that you're putting in. Let's see what the government meeting planner agent has to say. So, the bluff again, to ensure total inclusion, this checklist breaks down mandatory accessibility requirements for upcoming hybrid town hall. Pre-event registration materials with the goal to ensure the digital front door is open. So first, platform accessibility, make sure the registration website is compliant with screen readers, of course. Users must be able to navigate the entire form without a mouse required. Accommodation request form with including a mandatory prominent field with a reasonable accommodation to participate. Color contrast check. So that's one thing that people tend to miss. That's important for people who don't have the best vision. And I say this as someone who used to have glasses with pretty bad eyesight, something like -8 on one eye and -9. So I recently did LASIK, and that's much better. So you might remember me from previous presentations with wearing glasses, but I don't need to wear glasses right now, but I certainly appreciate good contrast of, or appreciate more in the past when it was more difficult for me. And so accessible pre-reads, you want them to be appropriately tagged for people who are hard of seeing. Live presentation. So cart services. We already talked about cart in the AV requirement. So this is securing a contract for communication, access, real-time translation, because auto-generated captions are often insufficient for technical government language, with human captioners being definitely preferred. Costs more, but it's much better quality. ASL interpreter. So hybrid feed with an ASL interpreter who's pinned or effectively spotlighted in the video stream so they remain visible even when slides are shared. Again, something that's easy to miss. And the interpreter, of course, needs to be well positioned. Then brief all speakers to visually describe charts, photos, or significant visual elements on their slides for low vision attendees. Physical venue check. Make sure that it's all ADA accessible, elevators, accessible seating, and so on. Microphone hygiene, that the audience has was only going to be talking when they have the microphone. Post-event recording and distribution, so things like caption synchronization, transcript availability, bio-weight compliant hosting, all of that stuff is important to keep in mind and remember. And so this provides you with an automatic way to get all that so that you don't have to try to remember it. This provides you with a clear checklist that you can just have for your events. And you can, of course, customize it to different events. So if you have, let's say, the Cybersecurity Summit, you might want to customize this for a Cybersecurity Summit. Then you'll just ask the agent to customize it for a Cybersecurity Summit. It's that easy. The result is true inclusion. So you serve every constituent with reducing risk of discrimination complaints, ADA complaints. You demonstrate the value of your agency, and you standardize inclusion across all events. All right. Let's talk about communication. The relevance paradox. You have a few distinct audiences when you're dealing with meeting planning. Senior leadership, who need high-level policy, technical staff who need high hands-on training, and industry partners who want to network. So let's talk about justifications that you will use of an approval to attend letter for each one: junior analyst, branch chief, and remote worker. So one is to the junior analyst. What's the benefit of them attending? What's their justification to attend? So you have the bluff up front, request approval to attend the event, offering specific technical training that would be improving their efficiency, closing the skills gap, cost avoidance, knowledge transfer, estimated cost, and so on. So here you're providing justification. You're providing folks with templates that they can use. So you're helping them help themselves. You're increasing your attendance by providing them with these templates. Version 2, the branch chief. The bottom line up front is I request authorization to represent agency name at the upcoming summit. Participation is critical for benchmarking our programs against federal peers and identifying opportunities for interagency resource sharing. Justification and ROI is strategic alignment, silo busting, and market research. And finally, the remote worker. So remote worker who requests approval to travel to location, to whatever location, which provides not only education, but also a critical window for face-to-face synchronization with the team, for retention and culture, for collaborating efficiency, and realignment on protocol. So this helps you increase your attendance and helps people be grateful that you are focusing on them and understanding their needs and concerns by providing them with these justifications to attend materials in advance of the event so that they can get justification to attend and you can get the audience that your event deserves. So the result, higher attendance. You directly address the why for each level. You align attendance with professional development plans and you reduce the burden on attendees to write the memo. And of course, you can adapt this. You can use the agent that I showed you to adapt this to whatever event you're planning, to whatever event you're organizing. All right, let's talk next about crisis and protocol. Of course, reality sometimes puts sticks in the wheels of our bicycles. And so a senior official who you planned to have speak can be recalled to the White House. Protests, unfortunately, increasing amounts of protests against the government can disrupt access to the venue, secure network failure for the keynote. That can be a problem. So let's talk about some examples with one example of how you prepare for these sorts of threats. So you work with the agent to identify a number of threats that are going to be vulnerabilities for your conference. And then for each one, you would put in information about, hey, here's the scenario. What do I do? So the undersecretary is running 30 minutes late due to a vote. The audience is seated. Suggest three immediate options to hold the room that adhere to strict government protocol. Options must not require new budget or unvetted speakers. All right, so let's see what happens. Bluff. The bottom line up front. We must maintain the dignity of the office of the Undersecretary. Don't apologize profusely. Simply state that the principal is detained by urgent official business. Here are three immediate options that utilize resources and vetted personnel. One is option one, facilitated networking protocol. So the MC can announce that the Undersecretary has been called to a vote and is en route. We'll take this opportunity to facilitate a high-level networking session, which people appreciate. So you execute it by instructing tables to introduce themselves, discussing one specific prompt related to the summit theme. So again, what is the biggest barrier to interoperability in your division or something like that? You, of course, want to prepare these in advance. So it keeps the audience engaged without requiring a new speaker and transforms waiting time into collaborative time, adding value to the attendee. The risk is low, it's professional and mission focused. Next, option two, comfort break. Check the agenda if you can move forward a break before the keynote. So to accommodate the legislative schedule, we are moving our networking break to now. Please return to your seats in exactly 20 minutes. And so it allows the AV team to loop up please stand by slides without the room feeling stagnant. And then the protocol risk is low because you adjust agendas for legislative realities. Folks know that this happens. Option three takes a little bit more prep. The vetted alternate, the deputy or chief of staff. So if a deputy assistant secretary or the undersecretary's chief of staff is already on site, you can ask them to provide opening remarks or an agenda landscape update. So you can have that announcement. So they're already vetted and clear to speak. They can warm up the room. There's more risk here because though you must ensure this person is willing and prepared to speak off the cuff. So this is something that you also want to update in real time for the AV team that run of show. You want to also think about Section 508 and keep the stage lights hot playing because that might imply that the event is stopped. So here you are basically can create for yourself a number of options in advance. You can anticipate that some stuff will happen, life will happen, Murphy's Law and all that. That if stuff can go wrong, it will go wrong. And you can prepare in advance for these contingencies by making this type of plan. It's like, okay, if this happens, we will do this. Or if that happens, we will do that. So that's the kind of approach that you want to definitely have and that you want to think about how you can establish. And AI can be great at that. It can give you, these are just three options. It can give you tons more options and can give you variations on these three options that are going to be quite helpful for your risk management. So the result is that you're going to be graceful under pressure, which is very important for meeting planning professionals. You maintain the dignity of the office. You'll use existing resources with no additional procurement. You keep the audience engaged and informed. And all of these things can be pre-cleared and vetted in advance of the event. Next, reporting and accountability. So let's talk a little bit about this. Of course, the event isn't over until the report is filed, as you well know. You need to justify the spend, provide alignment, prove the alignment with strategic goals, and demonstrate responsible stewardship. So what does that look like? One is tool here that's very widely used is called the impact report. where you look at survey data from attendees and you turn that survey data into strategies. So what you do is you feed feedback forms to an AI tool. And then you ask it, did attendees feel the training justified the travel cost? What is the most recurring logistical complaint? And then you do those two questions, and then you draft a summary paragraph for the annual report to Congress. So that's going to be your prompt. All right. So post-event impact analysis, BLUF, the bottom line up front. Analysis of the feedback indicates a strong return on investment regarding mission alignment and skill acquisition, but there are logistical friction points regarding connectivity that must be addressed to maximize productive time. Did the training justify the travel cost? Verdict is strong affirmative, yes, with 87% of respondents rating the training value as high or critical to mission. So stating that the skills acquired could not be learned via virtual modules or existing internal documentation. That's great. And of course, even before that, you can use an AI tool to come up with the survey instrument that's going to be customized to each conference. So if you feed the conference agenda into the AI and you could ask it to create a customized survey that would take some standardized questions and some ones that are going to be specific and custom to each individual event so that you can have a specific survey that's going to be really for your event rather than just a generic survey. And that can provide you with a lot of value where you can have some generic questions that you can compare to past events, but also some specific questions so that you know how to improve this specific type of event in the future. Okay, qualitative insight. Attendees cited cross-agency knowledge sharing sessions as the primary driver of value. And so you can see what they identified. By resolving interdepartmental bottlenecks face-to-face, staff estimated they saved an average of 4 weeks of email correspondence per project. Great. Stewardship. This metric directly supports the approval to attend justification used in the pre-event phase, validating the expenditure of travel funds. So going back to what we talked about, the approval to attend phase. Logistical complaint was Wi-Fi connectivity in breakouts, with 42% said that this was a problem. So this hindered the live lab portions of the training, forcing some attendees to use personal hotspots, which is a security risk, or wait for hotline connections. The root cause was the venue's basic meeting package only supported 500 simultaneous connections, but the average attendee brought 2.5 devices, phone, laptop, tablet. And so we keep in mind we have 500 survey responses, and so that was not good. So that's a lot more devices than the simultaneous connections. So for the next fiscal year, the statement of work must specify high density Wi-Fi with minimum of 3 devices per attendee, rather than the standard tiered package. And here then you have the final annual report to Congress drafted for inclusion in the human capital and stewardship section of the annual report from your agency. In this fiscal year of 2025, the agency executed a training symposium that delivered a measurable return on taxpayer investment. By consolidating regional training requirements into a single and centralized event, the agency reduced per capita training costs by 15% compared to individual external course enrollments. Post-event data confirms that 87% of participants applied new regulatory compliance skills within 30 days of return, directly contributing to a reduction in contracting errors and enhancing mission delivery speed. This event exemplifies the agency's commitment to evidence-based workforce modernization while adhering to strict fiscal austerity measures. So very nice, appropriate language for that sort of context. So this is analysis that moves from anecdote with people who seemed happy to evidence with 87% application rate, which is what you need in order to justify the effectiveness of your planning. And waste reduction, you're going to also identify how the Wi-Fi issue now was something that, hey, you didn't have budget for, but you really need to have budget for in your next cycle. So the result is you truly have evidence-based planning through your reporting. So you know that you can move from anecdote to evidence, defect next year's budget request, identify ways to cut for next time, and highlight mission success stories. All right. So I hope you've benefited. I wanted to make sure to leave plenty of time to discuss. I know that this is a topic that's a hot topic that a lot of people have a lot of questions for. So I want to make sure to leave some time for discussion and your questions, which you can pop into the chat. But let's conclude and see what the takeaways are. You want to focus on AI and facilitate adoption in in an environment that's unfortunately bureaucratic. So start secure using approved sandboxes or non-sensitive data. So again, Gemini, with your if your government agency already uses Google, Gemini is going to be integrated into it. It's going to be pretty clear for your IT that it's going to be secure. Focus on compliance. Show how AI reduces errors in paperwork, which it definitely can. It's quite helpful for that. Of course, you want to check the output. So you always want to have a human in the loop because AI can make its own type of errors. But the best approach comes from humans and AI working together, with AI drafting the initial documentation based on examples you give it, and then the human checking its work and making any corrections. So AI is a great tool to free staff for more high-level work instead of unnecessary grunt work. Now, common objections. It's not secure. Yeah, it is if you use the right platform. So if you use the Gemini Enterprise platform, the government version of it, if you use the Copilot, government Copilot, and and both Anthropic Claude and ChatGPT government are providing government versions of it. So if you're using the government versions of it, it's going to be secure. But you can use it for drafts, not final sensitive data, if you're worried about it. It's cheating. I hear that complaint all the time, and I'm like, how is it cheating? You're being more efficient. It's like people in the 1970s who didn't want to use calculators and thought using calculators is cheating. You're just being more efficient and more effective with your time. It's just saving taxpayer dollars, which is exactly what so much of the focus of current government policy is about. It's too hard. It's really not too hard. You saw the kind of prompts that I gave the AI. You have a paragraph long prompt, and then you use your natural language, you talk to it, and it gives you really helpful responses, which you can ask questions about those responses, go in depth into it, change them around. So, the future of government events. You will be less logistics managers than mission architects. You'll spend less time on spreadsheets, more time on strategy, and have a greater impact for the American public if you use AI effectively. And I believe that you can, and I will provide you with the resources that you need to do so. So again, for post-training resources. So as a reminder so first of all, if you are here right now on this call, Zoom call, you can answer the question in the poll of whether you want the post-training resources. And so that's if you are right here. If you are watching this as a recording, please make sure to go to tinyurl.com/DAEEVENT. You'll get a copy of my book, ChatGPT for Leaders, a copy of today's presentation slides, documents, the ones I shared earlier, the transcript of the conversation for making AI agents for government meeting planners, meeting professionals, and see some examples of how you can use it. And you can schedule a free coaching meeting with me if you would like some coaching on how to adopt AI effectively. So again, that's going to be at tinyurl.com/DAEEVENT, DAE event, tinyurl.com/DAE event, tinyurl.com/DAEEVENT, right in the screen. Okay, I'll be happy to take any questions now, and I'm sure that some folks are going to be asking some questions that they're going to be interested in. So please go ahead, ask away, put your questions into the chat.
So while we're waiting, I have a question.
Sure.
So I'm still not, I'm not, still not, I don't use AI like a Chat GPT or Gemini on a regular daily basis because I kind of forget it exists. And so I've realized that it might exist, and I'll go in there and I'll put something in like, give me suggestions on how I might write a cover letter about this to get to be, to maybe hire someone to hire me as a speaker or something. I'm just making this up. And once I put something in there, it tends to send something back, and then that is quick and short and isn't useful, and then it will say, do you want me to look at it in this regard or that regard? So my question is,
Hmm.
how do I best input my request so that it doesn't have to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and I can kind of get everything all at once, or at least nice chunks of stuff. Because if I put in there, just say, for example, not work related, and I say, hey, tell me the effects of caffeine on people with dandruff, making that up. It's going to say, this is what it says. It's not going to show me sources. It's not, and then it'll say, do you want me to explore caffeine and dandruff with men between the ages of 25 and 45? And I'm like, oh, that's so frustrating. Why doesn't it just give me what I want?
Understood. So there are a couple of answers to that question. So one is it depends on what kind of tool you're using. If you're using a free tool, then you are going to be not getting the best quality of AI. I was being like, if you're saying like, okay, you
Sure.
occasionally remember to use it. So that's just going to be like a basic fundamental part of the answer. So if you are using a free tool, you will just not be getting like that high quality. What I showed here was not a free tool. It's an enterprise version. So it's a tool that you pay for. And I don't remember what the Google one is. I think the ChatGPT enterprise version for two people starts at $50, for example, per month. So it's $25 per seat, probably similar for Google or something like that, but you have to have at least two people. And so if you're using that enterprise version, your data is not being trained on, first of all. If you're using the free version, your data is being trained on. So whatever you're putting in there is going to get used for training.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you are not, if you're using the free version. Second, like if you can use a paid version and then you can choose to opt out of your data being trained on the personal one. But I tend to use the enterprise version, and those are the ones that you want to use for government meeting planning work. So that's going to cost you something like I said, starting at around $50 per month.
Okay.
But I think there are some deals that have been struck by AI companies that provide government agencies with low cost access to AI. So you should look into that.
If I've already paid for the Microsoft Office suite or something like that, does Copilot come with it? Do you know?
So Copilot is an extra $30.
Yeah.
You have like the basic Copilot within, you should have the basic Copilot within Windows, but to open up like a specific Copilot that's paid is going to be $30 per month. So that's going to be like the quality version. And so if you want quality, you basically need to pay for it. And so that's what I would advise you to do, Alan, that you will get a much better version, much better answers if you pay for your AI and your data won't be trained on. I mean, you might not care about that. Some people don't. I kind of care. So that depends on your preferences.
All right, great. Thank you. Yeah, I'm still very frustrated by trying to use AI because I don't use a paid version.
Well, there you go. Then you're,
And
you're going to be frustrated. You get what you pay for, Alan.
okay. All right. Any other questions out there? Cindy Barner has a comment.
Mhm.
Department of Air Force has its own AI chat GPT approved up to, I don't know what CUI data stands for, but
Okay. Cindy, can you clarify what CUI data stands for? But yeah, it sounds like that's what I'm talking about. So this is the kind of thing that you want to be using.
and Cindy, what do you use it for? If there are, oh, here we go.
Oh,
Control
controlled and class.
unclassified information.
Okay, there you go. So low level of secure up to the lowest level. I presume that means the lowest level of security. Information that's controlled but not classified.
That's fine.
Yep,
Makes sense.
sounds good.
And do you use it for meeting planning? I'm just curious. Okay. All right.
Excellent. Well, you are a meeting planner, so I presume you use it for many things, including meeting planning. Other
I
folks,
have had some
other
success
questions?
with the free version, but any other questions? We still have a few minutes left. And did you respond to the poll? All right. Dr. Gleb, this was a pleasure. Thank you very much for being here. I think had some great applications, great examples of some applications that could be used. I liked how you laid out the input to put in there for certain things. And I hope people will take away some really good nuggets from today's presentation. And I want to thank everyone for attending. Just a couple of reminders. You need to have been in here for 45 minutes to get your credit. Even if you haven't, this will be showing up in the learning portal within a few days. You can always go back and watch it again. And there we are for our webinar. I want to remind you that our next SGMP webinar is scheduled for January 22nd, 2026 at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And it's going to feature a panel of SGMP members, Brett Sterenson, Chris McLaughlin, and Mike Rice, and they will be discussing Shake, Rattle, and Roll updates on the government market. If there are no more discussion, everyone have a great holiday. Dr. Glebe, thank you for your time and your presentation. Everyone have a great rest of their day, and we'll see you next month. Take care.
Thank you all. Have a great day. And thank you to everyone who said thank you in the chat. I'm glad it was helpful. Excellent. And thank you, Alan, for inviting
Thank
me and
you.
hosting.
We'll talk to you soon. Everyone
Bye-bye.
have a good day. Bye-bye.